And here we go. Look at this. We're kind of live in a weird way. I'm Brant Ramblin with Range here with Chris, 8-bit artist Olean, who's generously lent his time to this retro interview, or interview for retro, depending on how I want to phrase it. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing very well. So you, as your middle name implies, it's a very bizarre middle name.
Was
You,
born
you you did, of course. The Thug Life chose you, or the 8-bit life chose you, perhaps. You are an 8-bit artist. My first question is, when did you start drawing using the style, and also which games did you start drawing first?
well, the story of how I became to start painting this stuff was actually back in late 2004. I had a friend, her name was Colleen, and she asked me what I wanted for my birthday in February of 2005, and I told her I want a pixelated Mega Man painting. And long story short, she got too busy to do it. So in my head, I was like, at this point I had no artistic training whatsoever, and in my head I'm like, well, it's just squares, so let me just try it. And I did the first piece, which was just the sprite of Mega Man, no background, just Mega Man standing there, and it came out horrible. Everything was. It was lopsided. It really wasn't that straight. The painting was really blotchy. But I learned stuff from it and tried it again and got a little better. And I just kept tweaking it until, I finally started to stick on saying, I'm like, okay, this is how I should do this style.
So that was your first, I guess, formal 8-bit painting. Were you always like, even when you were younger, were you like a doodler? Were you always kind of drawing in the margins of your notebooks or anything?
Actually, I wasn't. I
Interesting.
really did not do much art until I started doing the 8-bit stuff.
Okay, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here. You were a gamer before you started doing this, though,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I had, my first system was the Nintendo, and then when Super Nintendo came out, I got the Super Nintendo, and tons and tons of games from those.
Of course. So the first thing that you drew was Mega Man. Are you particularly partial to that franchise, or what are your favorite video games? And then also, what are your favorite video games slash video game characters to draw?
Well, Mega Man's definitely in the top five. I think Mega Man's probably in everyone's top five, favorite Nintendo game. Um, Mostly, Mario and stuff, but I like a lot of the lesser known stuff. Little Samson was a really good game. I painted a piece from that. Um, a lot of the older RPGs like Final Fantasy and everything, but I don't really have a favorite character to paint. I paint a lot of Mega Man, Mario, and Zelda, but that's just because that's the most popular thing. So like when I get commissions or just do something in general that I know will sell, those are the main guys you go to. Like I've painted a little Samson piece before, but that was a commission.
Right.
So even if it wasn't commission, I probably would still I still would have painted it, but sometimes you have to stick to the classics, and other times I'll branch off and do something different.
Excellent. Now I've gone on, I believe it's your Facebook page, and I see a whole bunch of, or I've seen rather, a whole bunch of 8-bit art that you've done in chalk on the sides
Yeah.
of brick buildings. Can you tell me kind of how that came about? You're tagging these buildings with whatchamacallit, a non-permanent medium, like
Yeah. It first came about actually in 2008 for the 32-bit genocide show. The venue that we were down in Baltimore, Maryland, was called the Creative Alliance in Patterson, and we were trying to think of a way to get people to know that there's a show going on there that wouldn't. And I came up with the idea of, I knew that the venue was brick, and you can basically break down a brick wall as just a grid.
hmm
So I ran it by the people that own it. Hey, I would like to get sidewalk chalk and chalk up a bunch of characters on the outside of your venue just to try and draw attention to the show that night. And they were cool with it. I told them that it would wash off, in a rainstorm. And so we did that. It was me and my one buddy Adam, who he does a little bit of pixel painting, but not too much. But him and I went down there and got a bunch of the chalk and chalked everything up. And we were actually supposed to do more chalk at 32-Bit Genocide, but they were calling for rain that day, and the rain didn't end up coming. So we just tried to do as much as we could. We got like the 3 pieces outside, and then we did a couple stuff on the inside too.
Excellent. Now, when you go to these conferences, are you surprised rather that there's like a very I guess if you're going to a pixel based con, you'd have a warm reception. But are you kind of surprised that there is a bit of a resurgence in these pixelated games after we've gone through, the N64 era and the GameCube era, and then the 5th generation, I guess?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the pixelated games are coming back because a lot of indie developers, they're only 1 or 2 man teams, and a lot of the pixelated stuff, someone can bang out all that art by themselves, So I think that's what's helping with the resurgence, and plus, a lot of the people that grew up with 8-bit and 16-bit stuff, they're in their 30s now. They have that that nostalgia roots. They want to kind of relive the childhood where it was a simpler time,
Right. It's also worth noting that a lot of those primitive 3D games that were really kind of pushing the envelope, like Final Fantasy VII. You look back on those and you're like, wow, that does not look good. But you go back to a game like Final Fantasy VI for the Super Nintendo, and you're like, that is awesome.
Yeah, it still looks great. The pixel art in that game is absolutely amazing. But you're right. Like I would go and I was down at my buddy's house. He had his PlayStation 1 hooked up, and I think we played like Tomb Raider. And I remember Tomb Raider like blowing my mind back then, and now it's just like, man, this game really looks bad.
Yeah, they don't age particularly well, which is sidebar why I'm very excited that on PlayStation they trademarked or whatever. The ESRB approved Suikoden 2, so hopefully that'll come on the PlayStation Network, because that's a pixely game that I've yet to play, and I'm very excited.
Yeah,
yeah, I played the first one, have not played the second one. Sorry for the sidebar. When you're creating this pixel art, do you do everything by hand, or do you do some of it digitally, some of it by hand? Do you do certain steps of it digitally and then certain by hand, and then vice versa?
Well, for like the Nintendo games and stuff, I'll just basically either go to like a sprite site, like the Spriter's Resource is like my mainstay for sprite rips, and then you can just play on my Nintendo emulator from my computer and just do screen captures.
Right.
And then with that, I'll just create a scene from whatever I screen capture in the game, or whatever I put using the Spriter's Resource like site sprite rips.
Excellent. Oh, okay, cool. So you sent me a link yesterday to a Facebook group called the Pixel Painters Club. Can you tell me who are the Pixel Painters, and what your mission statement is, etc.?
Well, it was me and the Goth Elf Brothers Studios. They're 2 studios, Evan and Alex. They came to is actually Alex bought a bunch of my art years and years ago, and that actually inspired him to start doing pixel art as well. So he does paintings, and Evan does a lot of cube sculptures, which I do as well. And we actually just started that because Facebook really kills the organic reach of pages now. Ever since it went to public stock-wise, it's trying to get the ad revenue and everything, and what used to be like a 15% organic reach is now down to like a 1 or 2% organic reach. And what organic reach means is, on my Facebook, I think I have around a little over 9,300 likes. So when I do a post, it only sends it out to 1 to 2% of those likes. And then if they like and comment, Facebook's algorithm will send it to more people.
Right.
So you know, it's really hard to um, get stuff out there if people aren't liking and sharing it constantly. And you know, I was talking with Alex, and I was like, you know, back in the MySpace days, when I first started, you know, your organic reach was 100%. Like if you posted it, everyone that was your friend or followed you actually saw that post.
Right.
You know, and Facebook is really squeezing on the organic reach. So with the group, there is no organic reach there. It's whoever is a member of that group, they'll see the posts. So we just try to do that just to, you know, people that actually want to see our art can see it easily. You know, because with the Facebook organic reach, like it really killed a lot of pages.
Right. Interesting to think about. So you've been doing this for, you said since '05, so that's basically 9 years. Have you seen a shift? Is pixel art becoming, I mean, it's always going to be a niche to some extent, but becoming more popular, or more people are getting interested in it? I've seen a little bit more. My friends are starting to doodle a little bit more.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. The whole pixel art thing is getting, you know, a little bit of a resurgence. And like I said, with the indie game developers, you know, there's a lot of pixelated games come out for like the PS4 and stuff, you know, which I love. Some people complain about it, like, oh, I didn't buy my PS4 to play pixelated games, but you know,
Mercenary Kings looks good.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you'll have your Uncharted 4s and your Infamous Second Sons as well, you know, those upper end AAA games, but you know, if there's a good pixelated game, you know, it's all about the gameplay. It's not about the graphics.
Yeah.
You know.
I agree. Yeah, gameplay is key, especially some of those old platformers still, like Super Mario World, such tight controls.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, there's so many of those games back then were so revolutionary, you know, and I just saw I can't remember what the title of the game was, but it's basically a matchup of Metroid and Contra. And it was pixelated, and I was just like, well, this looks really awesome. Like, I would definitely play that on, like, my PS4, you know?
Right. Yeah, I agree. So you kind of picked this medium up, or maybe it chose you a little later in life. For people who would like to start kind of getting into it, do you have any sort of tips or tricks to kind of get started? Just buy graph paper and colored pencils, or what do you suggest?
Well, you know, it took me a little while to like hone like my certain technique. I don't like give out like how exactly I do it.
Oh yeah, don't give away the secret sauce.
But basically, like, the thing is, like, it all comes down to you're basically, you know, filling in squares. So it's like, as long as you have the canvas gridded and everything properly, you should be able to look at a screenshot and be able to paint it. It's not. I'm very open with. It's not a very hard type of art to get into.
Right.
You know, and with me, I didn't have any art training background or anything like that besides like high school art class. So it was just, I just practiced a lot. You know, I think I've done over 200 paintings, like you know, big size paintings, not small paintings with just like one sprite and no background. I mean, I started with that, but after I learned how to, like, okay, this is how I do it, I started just doing basically scenes all the time.
Right.
You know?
So if people want to see your art, or even ask for, or even request commissions, etc., where can people find you on the internet?
Well, you can email me at 8bitartist@gmail.com. 8 as the word, not the number. There's there's Facebook, which is facebook.com/8bitpixelpaintings. There's Twitter, which is 8bit_artist. There's DeviantArt, which is, I think, 8bit-artist.
You are all over the SEO. You just wanted to get that entire, any piece of that pie.
You know, it's funny. There's another guy who goes by the name 8bit-artist, and he doesn't do any pixelated stuff whatsoever.
Oh, that sucks.
And I'm not sure who was 8bit-artist first, me or him. But like, yeah, because someone came up and was like, "Hey, are you this guy?" And I went to the thing and I'm like, "No, I'm not him at all." And it's just weird that he also has the name 8-bit artist, but he doesn't do anything 8-bit or even pixelated.
So unfortunate. That's really a bummer.
Yeah, I was just like, oh man, sometimes I just recently joined Twitter. For the longest time I didn't do Twitter, and I didn't even have a Facebook page for the longest time because I just started getting back into painting like in 2003. From 2009 to like the end of 2012, I really didn't paint that much. So I just started getting back into it, and I was like, okay, now that I'm getting back into it, let me make a Facebook page for it and Twitter, and by that time everyone has every handle possible. It's like,
right, of course.
So I kind of have to be creative and on how to get the 8-bit artist name without copying the other people that took that name.
Right. And hopefully at some point there will be a new social media. You can get on that quickly enough to get the real 8-bit artist, and then you can reap all the benefits. And I'm sure that's going to happen at some point. You just got to kind of be a little quick on it, and then you'll have it. Well, thank you so much.
With how Facebook is doing its reach thing, I think Facebook is going to kind of go the way of MySpace eventually.
Yeah, at some point.
Especially with Tumblr and Twitter and Instagram and all that other stuff, Even though
they just keep buying them, though. That's the thing. Yeah. They just keep buying the competition.
Yeah.
It's very easy when you have all that money in the bank to to take care of all those pesky little problems and just integrate them to make them a better, stronger network. Chris, yep. How that works. Well, thank you very much for lending your time. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, absolutely, man. Yeah. I'm happy to help out, and I love Retro. I actually subscribe to it. I'm looking forward to that next issue.
RPG issue coming up.
Yeah, they have the Hyperdrift.
Yes.
On the cover.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Yeah, that'll be out. It's the May-June issue, so it should be out fairly shortly.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. All right, have a good one.
You too. Thanks, Brad.